Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the webinar that eMolecules is hosting with Strem Chemicals titled P-Chiral Ligands for Applications in Asymmetric Catalysis. We've had a great response today with people joining from all over the world, and we're looking forward to sharing with you some interesting ligands and catalysts that you could use and apply to the synthesis of any new molecules that you may be interested in making. My name is David James, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Chemistry Product Management at eMolecules. Most of you are more than likely familiar with eMolecules. For those that are not, or need a reminder, we aggregate data from hundreds of suppliers to make a standardized catalog that enables researchers to search and make informed decisions for purchasing research materials. Most people know us for providing just the data, but we're also heavily involved in getting those compounds into your lab as quickly as possible through the logistics workflows that we set up. We work closely with our supply chain to ensure on-time delivery of these materials by creating these purchasing and logistic workflows with our customers. And we're constantly looking for new technologies to improve these workflows to enable scientists to focus on science. So I just wanted to go over real quickly an introduction to Strem Chemicals. Their headquarters are based in Newburyport, Massachusetts, which is a coastal town just north of Boston. They also have a European headquarters in Strasbourg, France. They were established in 1964, so they have over 55 years experience manufacturing inorganics and organometallics. They have over 5,000 chemicals in their catalog, and a large percentage of these are available through eMolecules catalogs today. They specialize in lab chemicals for R&D, CGMP products at the kilo scale, high pressure materials, and they also do custom synthesis projects. Their customer base spans many market segments, including academic, pharmaceutical, microelectronics, materials companies, and chemical industries. So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. Ian Powers, who is currently a senior R&D chemist working on the manufacturing and process development of fine chemicals at Strem. Ian received his PhD from Purdue University, working with Professor Christopher Ueda. His research focused on dinuclear nickel organometallic complexes and their applications as catalysts for homodimerization and CH amination of aromatic azides via dinickel imido complexes. He then joined Strem in 2018, where he works primarily in new product development and improved processes for manufacturing. At Strem, Ian has had the unique experience of synthesizing compounds spanning nearly every area of the periodic table. So before we start the presentation in just 1 minute, I just wanted to go over a few details. To ensure a smooth presentation, everyone is actually muted by default. Please feel free to use the question box for any questions and comments. Feel free to send your questions during the talk, and I will collate them, and we will answer as many as we can at the end. And any questions that are not answered, we will follow up afterwards. The session is being recorded and will be available for download for all registrants. Please feel free to send any comments, feedback, or questions directly also to myself at david.james@eMolecules.com. So that's all for me. So now I will hand it over to Ian. Make you the presenter, Ian.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, all right, we can hear you, Ian.
Okay, great. Thank you, David, for the introduction. Today, I'd like to talk to you about a family of P-Chiral ligands we offer here at Strem, which have seen a variety of applications in asymmetric catalysis, and which are all based around this benzooxaphosphole core structure. A lot of what I'll be presenting on today comes from work done by scientists at Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals, such as Wenjun Tang and Chris Sananayake, as well as some work that Wenjun Tang has done recently as a professor at the Shanghai Institute for Organic Chemistry. To give you an outline of what I'll be talking about today, in general, I'd like to start the talk with the discussion of the history of P-chiral phosphines, including their early development and some design challenges they faced, and then discuss how these benzooxaphosphole-based ligands address a number of these challenges. These ligands can be broken down more broadly into diphosphine and monophosphine ligands, and so I'd like to talk about each of these in turn, looking at both their development and their applications towards asymmetric catalysis. So as the name suggests, a P-chiral ligand is a phosphine which contains a chiral phosphorus atom, where all of that chiral information is located directly on the phosphorus atom, typically by having 3 unique substituents or R groups situated around it. The very first examples of chiral ligands being used to perform reactions enantioselectively were actually done using P-chiral phosphines, and were reported by William Knowles' group in the 1970s, where they initially looked at replacing the triphenylphosphine of Wilkinson's catalyst with chiral methylpropylphenylphosphine in order to do a rhodium-catalyzed asymmetric hydrogenation of substituted styrene derivatives. Initially, they saw only modest selectivities when using methylpropylphenylphosphine or this CAMP ligand, which they developed shortly thereafter, but it really wasn't until the development of the dipamp ligand that they really saw considerably high enantioselectivities in these hydrogenation reactions. And this work really proved the value of asymmetric catalysis as a whole when the dipamp ligand was used in the commercial synthesis of the Parkinson's drug L-DOPA on a multi-kilogram scale. And so this work was really what kind of kicked off the field of asymmetric catalysis to begin with, and was one of the key pieces of work that led to Knowles receiving the Nobel Prize in 2001. And so, as I said, many of these first examples of asymmetric catalysis were done using these P-chiral ligands. You might have expected then that the 80s and 90s would have seen a lot of growth in terms of ligands with P-chirality. However, as it turns out, P-chiral phosphines are really not trivial to synthesize, and the next advancements in the field of chiral phosphorus ligands were made with ligands containing chirality that was located away from phosphorus, such as Noyori's BINAP ligand, which contains chirality in the binaphthyl backbone, Burke's DuPhos ligand, and Achiwa's diop ligand, just to name a few examples. And in spite of their remote chirality, the rigid backbone structures of these compounds helped them to still impart excellent enantioselectivities in various asymmetric transformations. It really wasn't until the late 1990s then and the early 2000s that we started to see a resurgence in the development of new P-chiral ligands, such as the bis-P star and mini-phos ligands developed by Tsuneo Imamoto's group. Around the same time, Wenjun Tang, during his graduate studies at Penn State University under Zumu Zhang's group, worked to develop the Tang-phos ligand. And in the same way that the rigid backbone structures of remotely chiral ligands, such as BINAP and DIOP, helped increase their ability to induce enantioselectivity, they saw that the same held true for P-chiral ligands as well. However, one thing that these 3 ligands on the bottom here all had in common was that in order to resolve the racemic mixture of starting materials, they had to use minus spartine, which at the time was only available in a single naturally occurring enantiomer. This problem of only being able to access a single enantiomer of these ligands highlights one of a number of problems that these early ligands faced, which prevented them from being more broadly applied to catalytic processes. All of the phosphines which had been synthesized up to the early 2000s suffered from a number of similar issues, such as the fact that they were quite air sensitive, many times due to the fact that they were either liquids or viscous oils at room temperature. And this in turn made them fairly difficult to handle and really hampered their application in other types of industrial processes. Also, the alkylphosphines generally had quite low rigidity, and due to the fact that their backbone was not really all that sturdy, they often racemized at higher temperatures. As I mentioned previously, it was also quite difficult to obtain both isomers of these compounds, which of course limits their applicability as well. And so a number of research groups began to develop new ligand frameworks, which could start to address some of these problems. A couple of key ligands that I wanted to highlight from this period were Imamoto's Quinox P star ligand and Zumu Zhang's WingPhos ligand, which both used a similar strategy of incorporating fused aromatic rings into the basic structures of their prior developed ligands, resulting in air-stable solids which were much more rigid and resistant to oxidation and racemization. In addition, because the chiral resolutions of these ligands were done using dibenzoyl tartarate, which was readily available in both enantiomers, they could access both enantiomers of the corresponding ligand. Wenjun Tang and his coworkers at the Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceutical Company were another group of researchers looking to synthesize stable and broadly applicable P-Chiral phosphines. Using a similar strategy to how the WingPhos ligand was developed, they took inspiration from the Tang-Phos ligand backbone and used a fused benzene ring system to impart more stability to the ligand. They eventually came up with this nice synthesis route that yielded this benzooxaphosphole core. And so by reacting lithiated dimethoxybenzene with dichlorotibutylphosphine, followed by reaction with formaldehyde, they made this phosphine oxide intermediate, which they then cyclized with a base following methoxy deprotection and mesylation of the alkyl OH group. One of the key points, I think, from the synthesis is that the phosphorus oxide intermediate material can be chirally resolved using either plus or minus methyl chloroformate, both of which are readily available isomers. And so they were able to get this final core structure, which they could synthesize on multi-kilogram scales. And then from there, they could go on to make a wide variety of different structures from this. So you can functionalize the benzooxaphosphole starting material by taking the alcohol to a triflate. And then from there, you can do various cross-coupling reactions to add different R groups off of the phenyl ring. From there, you can do a deprotonation with lithium diisopropylamine, where the bulky amine selectively deprotonates the position opposite to the T-butyl group on the phosphorus, to do a selective dimerization then with copper 2 chloride. From there, you can reduce down the phosphine oxide using trichlorosilane, and this dimer structure forms the basis for a series of ligands referred to as BIBOP ligands. Like most chiral diphosphines, this ligand has C2 symmetry, which creates a nice C2 symmetric binding pocket when complexed with a metal such as rhodium. And so the first work that was done with this ligand system was a sort of standard rhodium-catalyzed asymmetric hydrogenation of aryl enamides and acyl aminoacrylic acids. These types of substituted styrene derivatives have become somewhat standard benchmarks for new chiral ligands that have been developed. With this initial work, we can see the importance of being able to tune the R groups off of the BIBOP system, as the enantioselectivity of hydrogenation reactions varies quite widely depending on the R group on BIBOP, as well as which substrate is being hydrogenated. In general, the BIBOP and methoxy-BIBOP ligands give consistently high enantioselectivities and yields, but with the methyl BIBOP ligand, we see the greatest changes in selectivity, where only around 4% EE is achieved for aryl enamide substrates, but for the acrylic acid substrates, the selectivity increases quite dramatically to 94% EE. The versatility then of substitutions on the ligand system really allows you to kind of tune the ligand to fit your needs and gives you, I think, more chances to identify an effective catalytic system. One of the ligands of the BIBOP class, which has been the most successfully applied to various transformations, is the electron-rich methoxy-BIBOP ligand. This ligand has been used for rhodium-catalyzed hydrogenations with impressively low catalyst loadings, as low as 0.005 mol%, with good enantioselectivity. The copper-catalyzed propargylation of aldehydes to form secondary alcohols, again with a high degree of enantio and site selectivity. And also the rhodium-catalyzed hydroformylation of various terminal olefins, again with excellent site selectivities. And in this case, I think it's interesting to see a ligand that works so well for hydrogenation being applied to hydroformylation as well, since the classical ligands that have been used for this are typically better pi acceptors such as phosphites or phosphonites, which are better at dissociating CO in the catalytic cycle and accelerating the reaction rate. So I think that these examples kind of highlight some of the diversity of applications that these ligands have overall. In addition, an asymmetric hydrogenation of ketones was developed, which could operate again at remarkably low catalyst loadings of 0.001 mol%, while still yielding a reasonably high degree of enantioselectivity. This reaction was then used to install a key stereocenter towards the total synthesis of the CETP inhibitor drug candidate molecule on a kilogram scale. And again, the low catalyst loading and high performance of the catalyst system are really a testament to the stability of these ligands as a whole. Aside from using the R groups off of that phenyl ring to control the electronic profile of the ligand, you can also control the steric environment. By adding bulky anthracyl groups off the phenyl rings of the parent BIBOP structure, we get a ligand with very deep chiral pockets, which is referred to as the WingPhos ligand. Although the anthracyl groups themselves are not chiral, we see that the T-butyl groups off of the chiral phosphine direct the orientation of the anthracyl groups and create a nice chiral environment. We see that this helps a great deal with achieving a high degree of enantioselectivity in a basic sort of benchmark reaction, such as the hydrogenation of beta-aryl enamides. And this specific reaction was then used to install the main stereogenic center in the total synthesis of the alpha-1 blocker silodosin. This ligand has also been applied to the synthesis of tertiary alcohols via the rhodium-catalyzed asymmetric addition of aryl baroxenes to aryl ketones. The intermolecular version of this reaction has proven quite challenging, and previous attempts at synthesizing these type of products through asymmetric catalysis have resulted in either very poor yields or very low enantioselectivities. So I think that this work represents a nice advance in that area. In this specific example, based upon DFT calculations, it suggested that the interactions of the aromatic ring on the substrate with the bulky anthracyl groups of the ligand may have contributed to that high degree of enantioselectivity achieved for this transformation. Additionally, the fact that this reaction was run at 100 degrees Celsius with no racemization of the ligand, again, really shows just how thermally stable these ligands are to racemization. And again, this reaction was applied to a large-scale synthesis, wherein the chiral alcohol from the aryl baroxene addition was then cyclized to form the chiral backbone of the antidepressant escitalopram. And so by adding these large, bulky groups to the ligand, you can achieve a well-defined steric environment, almost reminiscent of kind of a mini enzyme active site, and achieve excellent catalytic performance in this way. New phosphine ligands that use this benzooxaphosphole structure are being reported all of the time. While Strem doesn't yet offer this compound in our catalog, one of the most recently reported ligands that I thought was really interesting is this ArcPhos ligand. This ligand was designed taking cues from both the electron richness of the methoxy-BIBOP ligand and the deep chiral pockets of the WingPhos ligand, resulting in a ligand with these alpha isopropyl substituted benzyloxy groups that maintain the properties of both ligands. In the seminal report of this ligand, it was demonstrated to be very effective in the hydrogenation of aliphatic cyclic tetrasubstituted enamides. These type of tetrasubstituted substrates have historically been very difficult to hydrogenate enantioselectively, likely due to the fact that they have fewer coordinating groups. When the hydrogenation of these substrates was attempted with methoxy-BIBOP or WingPhos, we see that they only achieve percent EEs of around 70 and 20% respectively, demonstrating that both a deep chiral steric environment as well as electron donating abilities are both necessary for the high degree of efficiency achieved in this reaction. And finally, one synthetic application that this ligand was demonstrated for was the first enantioselective synthesis of the Janus kinase inhibitor R-tofacitinib, using this hydrogenation reaction to make the chiral heterocyclic moiety found in the final product. While the BIBOP ligand systems are based around dimerization of the benzooxaphosphole at the methylene position, it's also possible to dimerize the benzooxaphosphole starting material at the aryl position via cross-coupling of the triflate. From there, you can then use LDA deprotonation of the methylene to tune that resulting dimer with various R groups. This class of ligands are referred to as BABIBOPs and were reported more recently in 2018 by both researchers working with Chris Sananiake at Boehringer Ingelheim and also by Wenjun Tang's research group at the Shanghai Institute of Organic Chemistry. These ligands display a binding mode similar to axially chiral ligands such as BINAP, but are also unique due to the fact that the chiral information is located closer to the metal centers in the resulting organometallic complexes, since these are P-Chiral ligands. In the initial reports of these ligands, the isopropyl variant was demonstrated to have incredibly high selectivity in hydrogenation reactions, such as this palladium-catalyzed hydrogenation of ketones, which was an excellent result for a palladium-catalyzed reaction, since previous enantioselectivities for similar reactions with palladium were only around the 60% range. And in general, hydrogenation reactions with palladium are much less commonly reported than those with, say, rhodium or iridium. We also see that the parent ligand works quite well for the copper-catalyzed hydrogenation of aryl-substituted ketones, forming alcohol products and high diastereoselectivities through a dynamic kinetic resolution of the racemic starting materials and taking advantage of their keto-enol tautomeric forms. Interestingly, the BIBOP ligand was less effective for this transformation and only achieved a yield of around 54%, which I think highlights the differences in steric profile around the metal center that these ligands create. So overall, these BABIBOP ligands seem like they have the potential to be used in a variety of asymmetric transformations. And I think that it's likely we'll see more reports of applications for this ligand and its derivatives in the near future. So now I'd like to move on to talk about some of the monophosphine ligand systems that have been developed using this benzooxaphosphole framework. In contrast to the relatively broad variety of chiral diphosphine ligands currently in use today, there are significantly fewer monophosphorus ligands out there. One of the most popular classes of chiral monophosphine ligands are monophosphoramidites. These have seen wide use in academic settings in reactions such as asymmetric hydrogenations, cross-couplings, etc., but they're relatively electron deficient and are not very stable overall, which has prevented their more widespread use in industrial settings. In contrast to an achiral system like Buchwald's S-phos ligand, we can see even just from the P31 NMR shifts of these ligands that the monophosphoramidites are indeed quite a bit more electron deficient, which means that they can have difficulty with challenging oxidative addition steps and in general display reactivity that differs somewhat from classical achiral phosphines. By contrast, benzooxaphosphole ligands derivatized with aromatic groups have P31 NMR shifts that are right around the -8 ppm range, and are much more reminiscent of a Buchwald ligand in terms of their electronic structure, which allows them to participate in similar reactions while also having the potential to provide a high degree of enantioinduction. Once again, the monophosphine version of this ligand gives you access to various derivatizations, this time at both the methylene carbon and the aromatic carbon, which yields a wide variety of structures, such as the BiDime and AntPhos ligand families, as well as a number of other unique structures that I'll talk about in a little bit. One key area in which these monophosphine ligands have been applied is in the Suzuki Miyaura coupling of hindered biaryls. These reactions are even challenging for achiral ligands such as S-phos due to the fact that there is a less hindered conformer of the ligand, which is accessible through rotation about the aromatic carbon-phosphorus bond, which can lead to catalyst deactivation, since then the reductive elimination of hindered substrates would become less energetically favorable. By contrast, these BiDime ligands are locked into the more active conformer, and can even cross-couple very hindered substrates to form tetra-ortho-substituted biaryl species with respectable enantioselectivity. This biaryl coupling reaction has been applied to the formation of a number of relatively hindered biaryl systems and has worked with a variety of BiDime ligand structures. In this case, all of these BiDime ligands incorporate some form of derivatization of the methylene unit off of the BiDime core structure, likely to increase the steric bulk close to the metal center and better facilitate reductive elimination. Of course, as many of these reactions are developed around solving problems in total synthesis, this coupling strategy was used to create a chiral biaryl backbone just a few steps away from this HIV integrase inhibitor drug candidate molecule. And again, the system was able to be scaled up to form kilogram quantities of the coupling product. A 2,5-diphenylpyrrole derivatized ligand has also been found to be very effective in this nice palladium-catalyzed de-aromative cyclization reaction. Optimization of these type of reactions is quite challenging because the aromatic cyclized product is of course the thermodynamically favored outcome of the reductive elimination step. And that therefore requires that the de-aromatized product be the kinetically favored product. Based upon calculations done on this system, the efficiency of this reaction has been attributed to the steric environment around this pyrrole derivatized BiDime ligand, which favors the intermediate whose reductive elimination leads to the de-aromatized product. This also explains why other sterically bulky ligands, such as the anthracene-derived AntPhos ligand, are also effective for this reaction. And so as a relatively underdeveloped reaction, this de-aromative cyclization, I think, has a lot of potential to form a variety of useful fused ring systems, And I think this could offer a lot of strategic advantages in the synthesis of products like steroid derivatives or complex terpenes, as these sort of ring systems with chiral quaternary carbon centers appear in many natural products. One nice example of this was the formation of an intermediate towards the synthesis of carine, a precursor for a number of terpene natural products. This example especially demonstrated the synthetic advantage of this route over previous synthesis routes using an asymmetric Heck reaction, which required 14 steps to get to the same intermediate, as opposed to just 4 steps with this system. This dearomative cyclization reaction has been proven to be a very effective strategy in a number of total syntheses as well. To give just a few quick examples here, the reaction played a key role in the creation of the scaffold to build molecules such as dilescanol A, crinene, and aspartospermidine, in this case all using the ArcPhos ligand. In general, this reaction has been one of the more broadly applied, I think, in terms of total synthesis, and it's an excellent way to form these fused multicyclic ring systems. Aside from second-row transition metal catalyzed reactions, these monophosphines have been found to be suitable for reactions with first-row transition metals as well. One reaction that these have seen use in is the nickel-catalyzed asymmetric reductive coupling of aldehydes and ketones with alkynes. This reaction was initially reported intramolecularly with ether derivatives to form substituted tetrahydrofurands. When this work was published in 2015, it represented one of only a handful of asymmetric nickel-catalyzed cyclization reactions, and was one of the first of such reactions to adapt a chiral ligand system to form these types of cyclization products with such high enantioselectivity. Interestingly, the achiral S-Phos ligand was able to achieve a yield of 98% for the formation of the racemic product, which again highlights some of the similarities in reactivity between these P-Chiral ligands and their achiral counterparts. This report was followed shortly thereafter by the intermolecular reaction, which again maintained similarly impressive yields and enantioselectivities for the synthesis of substituted enol products. The catalytic loadings with nickel, though, are obviously quite a bit higher than those you would typically see with second and third row metals. And so to try and bring that down a little bit, a unique dimerization strategy was developed for the bidyme ligand to try to protect it from potential aromatic CH activation or ring opening of that oxaphosphole by the nickel catalyst, which they suspected to have been a deactivation pathway for this catalyst system. This dibidyme ligand, which although it is technically a diphosphine, appears to behave as 2 separate active sites and complexes 2 nickel atoms. And the stability provided by this ligand structure allowed for a decrease in the loading of nickel by a factor of 50, which is the lowest reported loading for a nickel-catalyzed reductive coupling to date. So perhaps I think we might see more examples of this dibidyme ligand being used with first-row transition metals. One additional area in which bidyme ligands have contributed to advances in synthetic methods is the formation of chiral tertiary boronic esters, specifically those with alpha amino groups. This reaction proceeds with high Markovnikov selectivity and is compatible with a variety of aromatic groups. This reaction represents a nice advance, as chiral tertiary boronic esters have historically been fairly difficult to synthesize. A palladium-catalyzed diboration of allenes was also developed using this ligand, again yielding a chiral tertiary boronic ester with selectivities and yields that were much greater than prior reports. And this reaction was then applied to the first enantioselective synthesis of brasinazole. A number of unique monophosphine ligands have also been developed, which are derivatized off of the methylene unit with various coordinating groups to provide us a set of secondary interactions during catalysis. The methoxypyridyl-derived BACPhos ligand was developed for the asymmetric hydrogenation of pyridinium salts and was able to form saturated ring systems with high diastereoselectivity, such as this intermediate towards the synthesis of an 11-beta HSD1 inhibitor drug candidate molecule. In addition, a quinoxazoline-derived lalith-phos ligand was reported for the iridium-catalyzed hydrogenation of dialins under atmospheric pressures of hydrogen, and the alkene-derivatized Josh-phos ligand has a unique p-pi hybrid ligand structure, which has been effective for the rhodium-catalyzed addition of boronic acids to imine electrophiles. So in general, these types of monophosphine ligands with additional coordinating groups have helped to facilitate hydrogenations of substrates which have fewer directing groups. And obviously, these types of reactions are somewhat challenging when the substrate does not have a strong coordinating group, which can direct it into the binding pocket. And so in conclusion, these mono and diphosphines derived from a benzooxaphosphole core have seen a broad use in a variety of useful organic transformations. These compounds are rigid, air-stable solids, which have proven to be quite robust and stable even at low catalyst loadings and high temperatures. And finally, the P-chiral nature of these ligands helps to keep that chiral information close to the metal center during catalysis and allows them to impart excellent enantioselectivities in many reactions. Clearly, it seems that there's still a lot of room, I think, for these ligands to grow and find use in many more reactions, especially the more recently reported ligands, such as the BABIBOP ligand and ArcPhos ligands, which seem to be quite effective. And of course, new variations on these ligand structures are being reported all the time. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think, what types of synthetic challenges these ligands are applied to next. In addition, I just wanted to point out really quick that many of the ligands I talked about today are available from Strem Chemicals, and I've summarized them on this slide. These are, of course, not the only ligands that we sell, and there are a significant number of other classes of chiral phosphines that we offer as well. You can find out much more information about this on our website. Much of the information that I talked about today can be found in our most recently published Strem Chemiker, and I've included a link to that here as well. If you'd like a copy of these slides for your own reference, please definitely feel free to reach out either to Strem or to eMolecules, and we can provide you with those. And so with that, I'd like to thank eMolecules again for hosting this webinar. I'd also like to thank all my coworkers at Strem Chemicals for helping me put together this talk. Also, I'd like to thank Professor Wenjun Tang and his graduate student, Kaidi Lee, who wrote the introduction to our chemiker on P-Chiral Ligands, which, as I said, is where a lot of the information in this talk comes from. And last but not least, today for this webinar for your time and your attention. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to do our best to answer them. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Ian. A very interesting presentation. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to send them through the questions box or the chat box, and I will ask Ian the questions. So Ian, we have one question here. When these reactions are run on scale, are there options for recovering any of these chiral phosphine ligands?
I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think that most of the time, I guess the strategy for these is to run them at a low enough catalyst loading that recovery isn't necessary. I haven't seen or read anything specific about catalyst recovery. Obviously, these are homogeneous catalysts, so recovery is a little bit difficult. Yeah, I don't think that there's any specific solutions for that at this point.
Do they actually decompose during the reaction, or are they intact? Do you find? Have you looked into that?
I have not. Yeah, I have not specifically looked into that. No, I believe though that it seems like these all run, most of these reactions, like these hydrogenations and whatnot, seem to run to full conversion. The catalyst species seem to be air stable and temperature stable as well. So I would imagine that for a number of these reactions that you would probably still end up with a catalytic species of some kind or some sort of intermediate still present at the end of the reaction. But yeah, I don't know that 100% for sure though. That might be a question I think that we could reach out to the innovators, maybe to Wenjun Tang, and ask him about that specifically as well.
Sure, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, I actually have a question more about Strem's product development strategy. You know, it's interesting that you developed this, you know, with collaborators. You know, is that where Strem gets the majority of their product ideas from, like working with collaborators initially to develop products, or do you find that you know, is that where you get the majority of your product ideas, or do you go to the literature and then reach out to collaborators to see if that's of interest? Like, where do you get most of the inspiration for your design? Because there must be so many options for you for catalyst design and ligand design
All right. Well,
out
I guess
there.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much detail I can go into on that topic specifically, but I will say that when we are looking to bring new products into our catalog, that's one of the main places that we look is in journal articles and reaching collaborations with industry and academia. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if I can give too
Yeah,
many extra details on that front, but yes, that's where a lot of new products come from is from our contacts that we have with people in industry and academia.
right. Okay. Another question here is, how about purification with these ligands? Is it easier to purify? Is it easy to purify and obtain higher yields?
So sorry, do you mean to obtain higher yields of the reaction
Yeah,
products or of the ligand itself?
I'm
I
not
guess
exactly sure.
okay, yeah, I could
Yeah,
answer yeah, in terms of the ligands, I
yeah.
mean and I don't know if in terms of obtaining higher yield of specific ligand derivatives, I mean I think that those organic reactions are probably fairly optimized. I mean, they're running these reactions to make kilogram scales, right, of these ligands.
Right.
So I think that the yields reported for those are probably close to as good as
Reaction
you can get
products.
for those. Yeah. Okay. Oh, in terms of reaction products,
Yeah.
I don't know if you could get a higher yield. I mean, through crystallization, I don't think you'd end up getting a higher yield, right? But you could definitely, in a crystallization, significantly up your enantiomeric excess, right? Um, so I think in most cases, yes, a lot of these start out as reaction mixtures with uh, relatively high E's, and then those go up to greater than 99% once you actually crystallize out the product. In a lot of cases where these are applied to a large scale industrial reaction, yeah, you're typically crystallizing out that product to enantioenrich the final product.
Right. I think what maybe is this question is kind of aiming at is that are they easily separated from the organic products in a reaction?
Oh, okay, yes. I think that
Yeah,
in
I think
terms
that's
of
what it.
oh, okay, yeah, for purification purposes, yes, okay. If you were crystallizing out your final product, then yes, I would imagine it seems like it would be. It obviously depends on the product you're making, right? But if it's a relatively crystalline product, then yeah, you could envision cleaning up a lot of trace metals out of that by doing a crystallization, and then that if you could wash with something that would take the catalyst out, that would be obviously on a case by case basis though. But I think that in many cases that does hold true.
Right. Okay. I think that was the questions that have come through so far. Let's see if anyone has any final questions. So these ligands were in the most recent Strem Chemica. Is that correct? Ian, the one
Yes.
that came out most
Yes, yeah, that's
recently,
correct.
in November.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
2019.
2019, November 1 issue. Okay. All right. We've actually got a few more questions here. Are these ligands ever used pre-assembled on metal centers in applications, or are they mostly used in situ?
I think that the answer is both. It seems to me that it kind of depends on how the reaction was optimized. I noticed that it seems like that the differences in yields are not so great depending on whether you just throw everything together versus preforming that metal complex. I think that maybe it's just done for convenience factor on a case by case basis. But I do know that there are a few, I think, large scale syntheses that were reported that use the metal complex. Though in general, I will say, yeah, if you just maybe mix everything together, have like a brief induction period, you probably would get the very similar results. At least based upon literature reports, it seems like the EEs and yields are track fairly well, regardless of whether you preform the metal complex or not.
Okay. So I've actually got a couple more questions here. I was wondering about your opinion about the immobilization of these types of catalysts to develop supported catalysis.
Hmm. Let's see. I guess in terms of my opinion, I think I would say go for it. It seems definitely like a possibility that you could do something like that, especially for something like this if you're using a robust system or a robust metal complex like rhodium or iridium. If you were trying to do a continuous hydrogenation or something with that as a support. Um, yeah, I don't think that seems like outside the realm of possibility at all. A lot of these ligands, you could imagine using one of their functional groups to kind of tether it to something chemically as well. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. I do not know if I have seen reports of that in the literature yet, though. But I think that would be a really neat application, though.
And does Strem develop supported catalysts? Is that part
Uh,
of your product
I
portfolio?
believe yeah, I believe that we offer. I haven't personally worked on those, so I can't comment on specifics on that. But I do believe that we offer some
Mhm.
supported catalysts. Have to double check that. That might be a question if you're interested in more details on that to maybe reach out to our marketing department and just kind of shoot them that question, and they should be able to give you more details on that. But I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. So the next question: for larger scale of these ligands, is Strem planning to prepare in-house in the future?
I think that would be I think we'd be probably open to that, but I don't. Again, that would be not a decision that I would make. I know that we sell these ligands. The max that we offer on our website is 5 gram scale, but we definitely are very open to receiving or to giving out quotes for larger quantities. If In terms of our licensing of these compounds, we aren't really limited in the scale that we can synthesize. So definitely, if somebody's interested in larger quantities of those, we can certainly try to work to get those. Yeah.
Okay. And then that's something that you commonly do. Like, is it like if someone wants a larger scale of a catalyst, and then you would do a custom like scale up
Yeah,
of that
I think it depends on what the customer is looking for. Yeah, but
or ligand? Yeah.
yeah, it depends on our ability to scale it up or not as well. Some things are more scalable than
Right.
others, but yeah, typically we offer things and more of the research quantity scale. Um, but yeah, we definitely have the option or are open to quoting larger quantities as well.
Okay. All right. So the next question: are these catalyst ligand combinations suitable with common metal scavengers?
Um, Suitable with common metal scavengers. I am not entirely sure about that. I would say, I mean, these phosphine ligands are fairly strongly binding. I'm not sure if a common like chelator would be able to pull out specific metals. That is, I don't think I have seen a test or research done on that, but I think that it's something that would be worth testing. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know a solid answer to that off the top of my head. We could certainly look into that though. I know that we do have some metal scavengers that we sell, and it would probably be worth, I think, looking into that.
Okay. So just to follow up, uh, I guess we can maybe you kind of answered this, but like cilia bond DMT, for example, maybe we can follow up later, Ian, with to answer that.
Yeah, I think that
Okay.
that would probably be best. Yeah, we could get more details and yeah, definitely get back on that.
Okay. Great. Okay. So next question: have any efforts been made to modify the ligand backbone? For example, oxygen to like a substituted nitrogen, or 6,5 to 6,6? And if so, how do the resulting ligands compare to the parent system?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, that's another one that I don't know exactly the answer to off the top of my head, but let's see, I think that I have seen sulfur on the backbone, but I don't remember seeing nitrogen, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Yeah, I mean, I think they would have your standard, whatever the standard effect of modifying that heteroatom. I imagine that nitrogen might be a little bit more electron donating, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I think that the oxygen there in that backbone is partially a consequence of ease of synthesis. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think that would be a really interesting study, yeah, to look at the effect of that. I think that typically the substitutions off of that aromatic ring have had a larger effect. But yeah, I guess if you tried nitrogen or something, if it was unsubstituted, you could run into the problem of having that coordinate as well. Although I'm sure that the phosphine would preferentially bind. But anyway, yeah, I don't know more details of that off the top of my head, but I think that's a great question.
Okay. All right. Do we have any final questions right now for Ian? Okay. So all these slides will be made available to anyone, and we will also be posting the recording of the webinar as well. And so look for the follow-up email that you'll receive from us. If you have any other questions for Ian, please feel free to respond to that follow-up email, and we will get in contact and try to answer as many questions as we can. So I wanted to thank Ian today for a very, very interesting presentation, and Strem for collaborating with us to bring this presentation to everyone today. I want to thank everybody for that attended and listened in, and I wish everybody a good day and a nice weekend. Thank you.